Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio, everybody. What is going on? It is Gale right here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi Memoria Freese video. And today we're going up against the final trial once again. Of course, you guys have seen the video where I did the EX clear and of course the live stream from yesterday. But today we're going to be doing the S clear on the EX stage. I'm going to be showing you guys how I managed to get my S clear, of course, and hopefully that can help you guys in some way, shape, or form. Now, I know that not everybody can do this, of course, right? And some people are even struggling on hard and very hard. So what I'm gonna do is probably going to be dropping another video probably sometime tomorrow or day after tomorrow with some lower limit break characters where we're going to be taking on hard and very hard together, and we're going to get the S clears on those stages. Now, of course, if you guys go on to enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for more Danmachi and Danmachi Memoria Freese content, and leave a comment down below letting me know what would you guys like to see with the final trial. Maybe you guys have some specific requests for the final trial. Let me know if you guys want to see something a little bit different, and I'll try and get it done as soon as possible. Now, like I said, the EX stage and just generally this Amphisbaena fight is very tricky. It's not an easy fight because there are certain things that this monster does that makes it a lot more annoying, basically. It's because you have to kind of counter what the Amphisbaena does. Unlike the Juggernaut, which just hit extremely hard, you have to kind of build your team around a certain couple of things that will basically allow you to deal a lot of damage, because the one thing that this Amphisbaena does is that he gives himself P-res and M-res buffs on every alternate turn, basically, right? So you kind of have to make sure that you're prepared for those turns, basically. So the reason why I'm taking Wine in this situation instead of like a unit like Lazar, for example, is because Wine is capable of stripping away those P-res buffs, which is going to be extremely vital when you're going up against a stage like this, of course, where, you know, the opponent gives himself P-res buff every other 2 turns or 3 turns, basically, which will allow him to basically be extremely defensive, right? And as a result, you kind of have to counter that with the use of a unit like, say, for example, this Wine. There are other options as well. For example, even the 5th anniversary Finn, right? If you look at his third skill will allow you to get additional actions that removes the P-res buffs. Now, of course, I personally wouldn't really like it on a additional action, in all honesty, because that means the first hit that the unit does, like for example Finn, he'll launch an attack that'll do less damage because the P-res buff is on, and then on top of that, the additional actions will then go into play. So in all honesty, while I do like obviously the fact that he at least removes P-res buffs, it'll come in handy, it's still not perfect by any means of the imagination. There are a couple of other units that are capable of removing P-res buffs, right? For example, I think a lot of people pointed out the wind magic Riveria, actually, from the recollections of the wind event. And even though Riveria here is a magic unit and a wind unit, of course, right, the 2 elements and typings that the Amphisbaena resists, having a full wind team that's cohesive and together will probably actually be really useful, especially going into EX and just trying to clear it. It may not get you the S clear, but it'll definitely get you a lot of clears across the board in all difficulties very easily, I would say. But yeah, this Riveria is capable of removing P-res and M-res buffs, which helps out a lot, obviously, right? The other thing that this Amphisbaena does, and the reason why you realistically don't want to take a wind team or a wind magic team in particular, I should say, or any magic unit for that purpose, to be quite honest, is because the enemy reduces your magic by like 80%, which is really tricky. So you kind of have to make sure that you're taking a full physical team more so than a magic team, because you're just gonna be you're just inflicting pain upon yourself if you're taking a full magic team, to be quite honest. Now, of course, if you want to get a very easy S clear and a higher score than I have, of course, right, if I were to look at my ranking right now, I think I'm at like the top 50-ish area. Yeah, I'm top 51 basically. So you can see where I am right here, rank 51. I might try and see if I can get a bit of a higher score, but it's looking unlikely. I'm still gonna see what I can do, maybe. But if you want to get a much higher score, if you want to get into the top 10 maybe or something like that, you will need the specific units for this fight, which is of course the fire team. You will need Crimson Will Elise, you'll need Conflagrant Scar Bet, and you'll need Argo Rabbit Bell. Those three will basically be the units you'll want to take into this fight, and of course you'll support them with Nine-Tailed Manifestation Haruhime. Even though you're going to be taking a magic unit in the form of that Haruhime and a very supporting unit, the damage that you'll get from these three characters, because of the fire weakness and physical weakness that the Amphisbaena has, on top of course the Dragon Killer that Elise has, you're gonna deal insane amounts of damage, through this team. So that's another reason why you would be just way better off using the fire team if you have those units. Now in this situation, like I said, I'm running the light team, right, because this is my best team. My fire team isn't really that good. The only unit I have at a high limit break, and that too just at a relatively high limit break, is Bet. Bet is only at +3. I have Elise, but she's +0. I don't even have Argo Rabbit Bell, so it ends up becoming a bit of a problem. This is one of the teams I'm actually gonna probably use for the low limit break fight. I'm gonna have to make some changes basically, but otherwise this will be the team that we're gonna be taking into a low limit break fight basically. So yeah, so let's go into this fight now, and let's go over basically what I'm gonna be doing for each turn. Now as you guys can see quickly before we get in terms of the assists, we've gone for basically the perfect light team setup basically, right? We've got light res down, Apollo gives -25% P res, Alkitian gives 25% light attack damage, Kid Felice is basically there to give us the attack type single target damage upright. The only unit that I would say is very easily replaceable is this Eyes. This Eyes would probably get replaced by a 25% STR boosting character, such as this Felice at MLB, but I only have her at +2, so she's kind of useless in this situation, right? But otherwise, I would probably go for something like that, basically, to just give us a lot more power across the board basically. Now I'm gonna just quickly make sure I have the right equips on everybody, right? So of course I know I had this question come up in a lot of my in my live stream yesterday, a lot, and it's the question of how do you remove your characters? Like, okay, how do you do one attack with one character and then they leave right after that turn? The answer to that question is revolving anklets. Revolving amulets and anklets basically allow you to pull out a character at the end of the turn basically, so that allows you to effectively use a move with the character and then immediately leave so that they don't stay around, because you don't want them in the fight for long. You want them to do one move and then head on out of there, because that's their purpose. Their purpose is to just do that one move and hightail it out of there. So revolving amulets are the best way to go about it. Now personally, I would recommend building 2 physical amulets and 2 magic amulets, because there may be situations where you run maybe, let's say for example, 2 physical sacrificial units, not 2 magic sacrificial units, or 1 each maybe, right? So it's worth picking up 2 of each, 2 physical and 2 magic, because at the end of the day they give you a little bit of chip damage, which comes in handy tremendously, especially if you're looking to deal a lot more damage and stuff like that. So that's one thing I would recommend. Now I've gone for breastplates for everybody, which is probably the best equipment to take into this fight if you want to be defensive. Now in my situation, actually the way I'm going to be doing this fight is I actually want to take damage. So this is the skill flow, by the way. If you want to screenshot this and everything, you can, absolutely fine. We're gonna be going into detail on how the skill flow exactly works in just a second, but effectively the breastplates, while handy for me, is actually a sort of detriment as well at the same time, but I will go into that in much more detail in just a second. So let's get into the fight, and let's start off by effectively going over what happens on the first couple of turns. The first couple of turns is basically just debuffing and buffing ourselves, basically debuffing the enemy, buffing ourselves, and just trying to set everything up so that we can just all go all guns blazing basically. So we're gonna start off with Dawn Wind. Now usually I would say going for Night Storm is better, but I actually need the early SA gate charge from Haruhime, and also on top of that the additional damage received reduction kind of helps us a little bit in terms of taking a little less damage at the early stages of this fight. So we're gonna start off with that. Everybody else is basically using their buff skills, right? Leading Spear, Agios, and Indomitable Sword. So we're gonna just start off with that. Now on turn 1, he immediately buffs up his MRes and PRes. So we can kind of ignore that for now. We can't really do much about it, to be quite honest. You could use, for example, and this is another thing that you could do, is you could use Salvation Spear on Fianna as well, which is capable of reducing the opponent's status buffs by 2 turns and our status debuffs by 2 turns. So in a way, it actually kind of helps us out a little bit, but I'm gonna run away with that. I'm gonna run away from that, and I'm not gonna do that because I'm gonna wait for Wine to come in. Now, in this situation, Tione, the reason why I've chosen Tione here, you might be wondering, what does she do that will help the team out? Well, she's here to help out a specific unit, and that is Wine. Wine needs that water resist minus 40% to deal a little bit extra damage. So that's why we brought her in, because everybody else is doing everything else necessary. So for example, Finn is giving us the light res down on the enemy. Bell gives us the minus 40% P-res. So does, and Finn also gives us the attack type single target damage up by 30% as well. So there's realistically no reason for us to realistically have any other unit in this position. And I needed an adventure that wasn't going to debuff the enemy's power by any means of the imagination. So not increasing RP, res, and M-res, not decreasing the opponent's strength and magic, because we want to take hits. And the reason why we want to take hits is because we get counter damage. Before I did this run, right, I was using Lazar in the spot. Actually, I was using Lazar in the spot to get the STR and magic decrease and P-res and M-res increase, right? Because initially I was thinking like I needed help surviving, but then I realized that I wasn't dealing enough damage, and I was getting really close to defeating the enemy by turn 12, turn 13 effectively. Now, to get an S clear on this stage, you need to do it within 12 turns, right? I was getting it on the 13th turn usually, maybe 14th turn sometimes, right? So I realized that I was just missing out on a little bit of damage. And then I realized, well, I'm not countering because I'm not taking enough damage, right? Because if you take 0 damage, it is extremely unlikely, if not impossible, to get a counter off, in all honesty. So you want to take damage in order to get counters off. And trust me when I say this, with the amount of attacks that this Amphisbaena does per turn, you will get a lot of counters off over the span of the 10, 12 turns you're fighting this enemy for to get the S clear. And that adds up. That adds up tremendously. Like I said, I would have only gotten a turn 13, turn 14 clear if I were doing this stage. I'm going to show you guys how fast this actually goes in a second. So let's go with the attacks now. Let's get into the fight and start going off with it. So Holy Thrust, obviously we're getting some counters off right now. Now in the early stages, this is still not perfect, purely because of the fact that we obviously did get some damage reduction boost from Haruhime. In that position, maybe using somebody like, for example, Line would probably be better. I'm going to try that out in the near future to try and get a better score, but this is the guaranteed. This is the one that I know is a guaranteed clear, S clear. And I'm gonna go, I don't want to give an indication of what turn I cleared on until the end of the video, but this is a guaranteed S clear. This is a guaranteed S clear. Now obviously on turn 3 Wine comes in, right? And at this point you might be wondering, Gale, you should launch the 3rd skill, right, which allows you to get the P-res removal skill. No, because the thing is, right, on turn 4 he will re-implement the P-res buff on himself, and he'll rebuff himself up. And as a result, you want to just, there's no point in using Candy Cane Impact twice when you could buff up Wine right now and then do the thing you want to do on the next turn. Now, what I'm going to do here, in order to basically get a little bit of an extra boost as well, is I'm going to use Agios Amnesia early here. Now, in my skill flow, I had it on turn 4. I want to use it on turn 3 and see how it goes. This is not going to change it too much, I don't think, but at least it'll give us an idea on exactly how things will turn out, of course, right? So yeah, there we go. Warblade is going off. Piercing Spear. The damage is still good. Now, the damage is still good from everybody else, even though there is a P-res buff, but it's the point of the matter is that you still want to just have the P-res go away so that you're just dealing a lot more damage, because with the buffs active, right, he gives himself a 40% P-res and M-res buff, which is not nice at all. So you may as well take advantage and try and get the decrease going, because right now it's minus 75% with the P-res buff active. With that going away, that's a minus 115% P-res buff, which debuff, sorry, which is really, really good. So you want to go for that. All right, so let's go for Candy Cane Impact. Hardened Scale goes off there, so you can see that's where he does that. Now we strip away that buff, and we're dealing pretty much like 200, 300k more basically automatically which is really, really important. So as you guys can see, we get that off on turn 5 now. Now, this is where things get interesting. So far, he hasn't cleansed our buffs and debuffs. That's something that I was worried about quite a lot when we first found out about what this Amphisbaena does a couple of days ago through the tips and tricks that the developers provided. But so far, he hasn't done that. And he doesn't do that until turns 10 and turn 16. So in all honesty, the game is incentivizing you to go extremely offensive from the get-go. Just go all guns blazing basically from the get-go. So that's the idea behind just using the special arts on turn 5, and then there will be another special arts run at turn 10 before he debuffs debuffs us and debuffs himself and cleanses everything on the field basically. All right, so the idea behind using Finn's special arts, by the way, instead of Belle's, right? Some people might be wondering, why aren't you using Belle's? Belle is more powerful than Finn, right? We know this for a very long time, that Belle is an insanely strong unit. Well, the thing is, right, Finn has this additional action attached to him with his special arts, which is very, very strong. His special arts allows you to get a minus 60% P-res on the enemy. It allows you to get 66% SA gate charge on your allies, which is really, really useful. So that is something to bear in mind, is also that he special arts on turn 5, but that's why you ideally want to use Finn's special arts to take advantage of the insane amount of supportability that he can give through his additional actions. So we're going to use Piercing Spear, Holy Thrust, Candy Cane Impact, because on turn 6 he does re-implement his buffs basically. He re-implements his physical res buff there you go. Hardened Scale, beautiful. Holy Thrust, there we go, very, very nice. Now, the one thing I've noticed, right, in order to get a little bit extra damage, you could also lower Fianna's agility, right? Instead of using a breastplate, right, you could run something like a Galmusa ring instead, right? An armor piece that basically reduces the agility of the unit basically, right? So you could run something like a Galmusa ring basically in order to basically go slower, because in that sort of situation, right, you ideally would like Wine to go first so that she strips away the P-res buffs from the enemy. Obviously, Fianna's been going first more often than not, so you kind of want to maybe introduce something like that in order to make her go slower so that she does more damage with her own attacks. That's something I will try and implement again when I go into a proper run where I'm trying to get a much, much higher score. So now I'm going to use Snow Shoveling Gift basically in order to effectively start being able to get the extensions with Wine instead of Fianna, because Fianna's run out of her Agios at this point basically, right? So now we're just gonna rely on that front basically. All right, beautiful. Now Snow Shoveling Gift again, Piercing Spear again. So yeah, these two turns are very basic because he doesn't use Hardened Scale at this point. Hardened Scale comes into play primarily on turns 1, turns 4, turn 6, and turn 9. Those are the turns he basically uses Hardened Scales on. When it comes to the first 10 turns, the main turns that we have to keep an eye out on. He obviously uses it on turn 11 as well. Once the 10th turn is done, where he cleanses all the buffs and debuffs, he will re-buff himself up on turn 11 with Hardened Scale. So you have to keep that in mind as well. All right, so now we use Candy Cane Impact because Hardened Scale comes back into play. So there we go. Holy Thrust is there. Now hopefully Candy Cane Impact goes off. We're brilliant. That is exactly what I like to see. And now on this turn is where I launch. As you guys can see, he's only on a 10th of his HP basically. We have special arts from Belle and Finn going off, which means this is going to be a extremely powerful turn from both these characters, right? So as you guys can see, 5.4 million, which is really, really good. And then of course, Finn can launch his special arts, which will obviously deal a lot of damage. We get the combo essay off as well, which basically wraps things up in a nice, tidy bow, basically. We obviously have to get a couple of counters off here, so there you go. One counter should be enough. There we go. Perfect. Beautiful. I wonder if we'll get a higher score, because that was actually faster than my usual run, in all honesty, because let me see. I'm very curious. Is that going to be a higher score? No, it's a little bit of a lower score, just by 50,000 points, literally just 50,000 points. But there you guys go. Let me know if you guys would like to see anything else in terms of other teams. Like I said, unfortunately, I don't think a team like this, for example, would be able to beat Extra at all, to be quite honest. It's just practically impossible, right? But I do think this team can probably beat very hard, but definitely hard for sure. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the final trial. Did you guys like it, dislike it? Do you guys think it's nicer that they went easier, or did you want it to be just as hard as the Juggernaut one? I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say, because I know some people believe that the final trial, you know, it's way too overtuned towards whales. So I think that this one being a lot easier for players, right? Especially even mid-level players, right? Players who are in the midpoint of the game, basically, not end game, of course, right? Are able to at least do this on hard and very hard. Because let's be real, I know so many people who couldn't even do Juggernaut on normal last time round. So let me know what you guys think down below. Please be sure to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.